My sister stole my husband and got pregnant for money. But a surprise awaited her. I'm Amelia, and at 34, I thought I had my life pretty much figured out. That was until a couple of months ago when my younger sister, Chloe, 28, hit rock bottom. Chloe had just lost her job after her company downsized, and then, to make matters worse, she got incredibly sick with the flu, or so we thought at first. After talking with our parents, I offered to let Chloe move in for a while. I figured I could help her recover, keep an eye on her, and save her from paying rent while she got back on her feet. Our parents live several states away, and Chloe doesn't have a big support network of friends nearby who could really take her in, so it felt like the right thing to do. Family helping family, right? Famous last words. Turns out, her way of repaying my kindness was to sleep with my husband. And not only that, but she actually had the audacity, the sheer nerve, to suggest that I should be the one to leave so she and my husband could play happy families because, wait for it, she was pregnant. This whole bombshell dropped just a few days ago. Chloe asked if my husband, Mark, and I could sit down because she had something important to tell us. Honestly, I thought she was finally going to announce she was moving out. She'd been getting much better lately, and I figured she was ready to look for work again and get on with her life, away from ours. Instead, she casually drops this bomb that she and Mark had been having an affair for weeks and now she was pregnant. When I looked at Mark, I could see he was just as blindsided as I was. It was clear Chloe hadn't exactly prepped him for this little announcement. Which, in a twisted way, actually made sense of a few things in retrospect. After revealing her happy news about the baby, Chloe went on to say, with a straight face, that she knew this might be a bit of a shock and she was so sorry for what happened. But, she breezily added, what's done is done, and we can't change the past. Then came the kicker, she actually asked me to leave the house. She said she'd feel uncomfortable living with me in her condition. Rage bubbled up inside me, but somehow, I managed to stay calm. I told her, very quietly, that I wasn't going anywhere. This was my house. If anyone needed to pack their bags, it was her. And she could take my soon-to-be ex-husband with her. They could go play house wherever they liked, because I would be filing for divorce and I never wanted to see either of them again. I kept my voice level, fighting to control my anger, determined to maintain some shred of dignity in this insane situation. They'd already sucker punched me, I wasn't about to give them the satisfaction of seeing me lose it. When I said this house was mine and I wasn't leaving, Chloe actually looked at me like I was joking. But then Mark, to his credit, stepped in and confirmed I was dead serious. He explained, in front of Chloe, that he didn't own a damn thing. This seemed to be breaking news to Miss Chloe. Apparently, he'd been painting a very different picture for her. See, Mark and I have been together for 8 years, married for 5. Shortly after we got married, I took a huge leap of faith and started my own business. Luckily, it took off. So, a few years ago, we decided Mark could quit his soul-crushing office job and pursue his dream of writing full-time. It was a hobby he'd always loved, and we could afford it. For the last 4 years, he's been working on his great American novel while also, supposedly managing the house. We don't have kids, so honestly, there wasn't that much to do around the house. The house, the cars, everything. It's all in my name because I bought it, and we'd both agreed it made sense for me to be the owner. I bet he's regretting that conversation now. When Mark admitted to Chloe that he was broke and had lied, she absolutely flipped out. She started screaming at him, calling him a fraud and a liar, saying she'd been tricked. Honestly, it was a little satisfying to watch her lose it on him, but I really didn't care about their drama at that point. I just wanted them gone. I had to step in again and tell them to shut up and stop yelling because I wanted them out of my house. Right then. No leisurely packing, no dramatic goodbyes. Just gone. Mark, to his credit, finally seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation. He knew there was no talking his way out of this. He knows how much I value my self-respect and dignity, and he knew I'd never forgive infidelity. So, he just quietly went to our bedroom and started packing a bag. Chloe, on the other hand, dropped to her knees and started begging me for forgiveness. She said she'd do anything to fix things, but she just needed a place to stay and couldn't be thrown out, especially now that she was pregnant with my nephew. The word family coming out of her mouth just sent me over the edge. I grabbed her arm, hauled her to her feet, and shoved her towards the front door. Yeah, I was rough, but I honestly didn't care. I was furious. The fact that she dared to call us family after sleeping with my husband under my own roof just made my blood boil. She kept crying and begging on the porch, but I slammed the door in her face. Then I stormed into the guest room, messily threw all her stuff into her suitcases, and lugged them out to the porch. I told her to leave, or I was calling the cops. She kept sobbing, but I just shut the door again and went back inside. A few minutes later, Mark came out with his bags, apologizing like his life depended on it. I just pretended he wasn't even there. Chloe cried and begged on the porch for another hour after he left, but I put on my noise-canceling headphones and tuned her out. Eventually, I noticed the silence and realized she was finally gone. That night, I called my lawyer, told them everything, and said I wanted to file for divorce immediately. I planned to tell my family and friends later, but the next day, I got a call from my parents. And that's when things got even weirder. They said what I'd done was horrible. According to them, I'd been cruel and insensitive to Chloe, who had been going through so much lately. I was completely floored. My parents have always treated Chloe and me pretty equally. It's not like Chloe was ever the golden child or anything. But the way they started defending her just didn't sit right with me. They said they knew she was pregnant and that I couldn't just kick her out of the house in that state, especially knowing she was between jobs and recovering from a serious illness, which now I suspect was just morning sickness, but whatever. They said it would take her time to get back on her feet, and besides, she had no one else around who could care for her as well as I could. Her friends, they said, were all dealing with their own stuff, jobs, families, financial struggles, so they couldn't take her in. My parents actually argued that, as her sister, the least I could do was forgive her stupidity and be there for her. And then, they dropped another bomb. They reminded me that it was Mark who seduced her, not the other way around. Apparently, he'd told Chloe he was the one managing our finances and was a successful writer of novels and movie scripts. Supposedly, he didn't want the fame, so he stayed anonymous. My sister, bless her naive heart, apparently bought the whole thing and thought he was someone important. That's why she fell for his lies. But then it got even worse. They actually admitted that Chloe had confessed to them that she'd been having an affair with Mark, and that they'd both thought they could force me out of the house together. Unfortunately for them, their brilliant plan totally backfired, especially since they hadn't even bothered to coordinate their stories. Chloe's confession to them just ruined everything for both of them. I stood my ground. I asked them, "What sister? I don't have a sister anymore." Then I argued that I had every right to kick her out because she chose to betray me with my husband. It didn't matter if he played a part, too. They both equally chose to stab me in the back. There was no point in kicking him out and letting her stay as if nothing had happened. I didn't care that she was pregnant or unemployed. I'd already considered those things before I let her move in for a few weeks that turned into months. And how did she repay me? By sleeping with my husband under my roof. Besides, it's not like she was heavily pregnant and helpless. She was only a few weeks along. Honestly, even if she were 9 months pregnant, I still would have kicked her out. What she did was disgusting. She was ready to throw me out when she thought the house belonged to Mark, so I see this as poetic justice. But my parents just kept insisting I was being too harsh. They focused on how I'd handled the situation, rather than what she'd done. I got so tired of hearing the same ridiculous arguments that I finally just hung up on them. And we haven't spoken since. Do you think I was wrong to kick my pregnant sister out of my house? Update 1. I understand that some people think kicking a pregnant woman out of your house is horrible. But keeping her under my roof after what she did would have been absolutely insane. Luckily, most people seem to agree I was completely justified and believe she should find somewhere else to stay. Yesterday, I blocked my parents' numbers too. This whole situation has taken a huge emotional toll on me. But I can't just stop working. I'm the boss, so I have to put on a brave face and handle everything at work. It's business as usual at the office, but when I get home, I completely break down. The emotional pain is just unbearable. A few days ago, my lawyer and I officially filed for divorce. Mark will be served with the papers soon, and I don't think he'll contest it. He knows me well enough to realize I won't let him off the hook if he tries to drag this out. But even though I'm confident in my decision, it still hurts like hell. Winning the divorce won't magically make everything better. I just can't believe that after 8 years together, he would betray me like this, and with my sister of all people. I genuinely thought we were in love, that we'd grow old together. Now, I'm questioning everything we ever had. Maybe this wasn't his first affair. Maybe this is just the first time he got caught. The thought of that just breaks my heart all over again. But there's nothing I can do now except accept it and try to move on. He's the only one who hasn't tried to contact me since I kicked them both out. My parents and Chloe have, but only to try and convince me to let her come back and stay here again, for free, of course. It's insane that my parents are actually taking her side. In my original post, I mentioned how my parents always treated Chloe and me equally. Now, I'm not so sure. I never had high expectations of Chloe. We weren't best friends, but we didn't have a bad relationship either. That's why I agreed to help her and let her stay. We had a spare room, and I thought, why not? My parents encouraged it, too, and I believe that's just what families do. But I never expected her to betray me like this. It hurts when someone you've been helping for months stabs you in the back. With my parents, it's even harder to accept. They've always been reasonable and fair, so I really expected them to be furious with Chloe. To be fair, from our conversations, it was clear they didn't approve of her actions. But they kept insisting the damage was done, and now we just needed to move on. I don't know what's gotten into them, but I'm deeply disappointed. I feel like I've lost all the respect I once had for them, and I'm not sure if it can ever be restored. Emotionally, I'm drained. Mentally, I'm just focused on work because my personal life has completely fallen apart. I haven't even told my friends about what's happening, though I know I'll have to eventually. Mark and I share a lot of mutual friends, and I'd rather they hear the truth from me than whatever twisted version he might be spinning. At this point, I don't know what to expect from anyone anymore. Right now, I'm prioritizing two things: ensuring my work doesn't suffer and handling the divorce. I'm fairly confident Mark won't contest it. I've been fair with the terms. But there's always a chance of the unexpected, so I'm preparing all the necessary documentation, just in case. Beyond that, I'm trying to keep my mind as clear as possible. The last thing I need is to spiral out of control. Sharing my feelings here has been incredibly helpful. I truly appreciate everyone who's reached out, commented, and offered support. It means more to me than you can imagine. Update 2. As I expected, Mark didn't contest the divorce. He texted me to say the terms were fair. In another message, he actually admitted he'd been thinking of ways to apologize to me, but couldn't come up with anything that didn't sound weak or insincere, so he decided to just say, "I'm sorry." He then went on to explain that he lied to Chloe to impress her because he'd been feeling inadequate. Not owning anything, relying on me financially, and not even having kids left him feeling like he lacked purpose. His novel wasn't progressing, and he felt like he'd wasted 4 years on something going nowhere. That frustration, he said, turned into depression, but he couldn't admit it to himself, let alone talk to me about it. Then Chloe came along. Without thinking about how depraved it was, he started lying to her to boost his ego. He claimed to be in control of our finances and successful in his career. Eventually, it led to them sleeping together. He thought it would be a one-time mistake, but it spiraled out of control. Even though he felt guilty, he couldn't stop it. It became his way of escaping everything that was wrong in his life. When Chloe got pregnant and our confrontation happened, everything fell apart. He told me he deeply regretted everything. He admitted he'd ruined what we had, but swore this was the first and only time he'd cheated. He begged me to believe him and hoped that someday I might forgive him. After reading that message, I actually cried. It was yet another reminder of everything I had lost. I thought I knew this man. Thought we had a solid relationship built on love. But in a single day, it all came crashing down. Losing that trust is devastating, and I know anyone who's been through a divorce or betrayal understands exactly how I feel. Part of me wanted to hate him, to focus on all the terrible things he'd done. But in the end, it still just hurts. I hated myself for crying over his pathetic message, but after I finished, I gathered the strength to block him. He didn't deserve a response, not now, when everything is still so raw. After a while, I started feeling even angrier about what he had said. All he had to do was talk to me. I never, not once, made him feel bad for choosing to stay home and work on his novel. I'm not a particularly creative person. I've never been into writing or anything like that, except now, I guess, since I need to get all this off my chest, but I respected his creative side. I didn't see anything wrong with him staying home. Maybe his fragile male ego couldn't handle it. Maybe other people made comments, and he just got bitter. But after 8 years together, the least he could have done was tell me what was going on. We got married to support each other, and I would have been there for him. Maybe we could have worked it out together. But he chose not to. He leaned on Chloe instead, and that's how we ended up in this mess. The more I think about it, the more disgusting and pathetic it seems. He lied about so many things to make himself seem bigger and better. It's pathetic. I loved him as he was, but that wasn't enough for him. This will never make sense to me. At least with Chloe, I understand her motive. She wanted my life without putting in any effort. She thought she could do that by getting pregnant and moving in with my so-called rich husband. But now I can just choose to ignore her existence. In a few months, I'll be done with the divorce, and then I'll never have to see or think about him again either. Update 3. It's been a couple of days since my last update, and I'd actually had a few peaceful days. But this morning, my parents showed up at my house. It was odd because ever since they moved back to my dad's hometown to manage the family business with my uncle, they rarely visit. Usually, It was Chloe and me who had to go see them. The fact that they took a flight to see me meant something big. But I knew they were only here to talk about Chloe. So, when I opened the door, I told them outright, if you're here to talk about her, I don't want to hear it. There's only one Sunday a week, and I wasn't about to waste mine rehashing the same topic. I'd already said everything I needed to say, and then some. There was nothing left to discuss about this situation. I made it clear they could only come in if they apologized to me first. They had two choices, apologize or leave. I set my boundaries very clearly. But my parents just insisted they came specifically to talk about Chloe. They said we needed to address this because the way I was treating her and them wasn't right. To them, we were family, and families handle things differently. Once again, they started with the family angle, and just like with Chloe, I lost my patience. This is not how families treat each other. At least not in the kind of family I'd ever want to have. I did give them that much. In this family, we do handle things differently. My sister sleeps with my husband, and I kick her out of my house. That's certainly different from most families. I laid it all out for them. They tried to stammer and come up with arguments, but I didn't let them. I steamrolled through everything they could have said. By the time I was done, my mom was in tears. But this was my turf, and I could talk to them however I wanted, especially since they decided to bother me this morning. This whole conversation should have been directed at Chloe, the one who actually did something wrong, not me. After I finished yelling, my mom was crying so hard that my dad told me he never wanted to speak to me again. He said I was a horrible daughter for making my own mother cry, the woman who gave you life. But I honestly don't care. They can think I'm crazy if they want. I know I'm not, and that's enough for me. If anyone's crazy, it's them, or Chloe, and honestly, maybe all three of them. Update 4. It's been a month since my last update. I haven't been in contact with anyone in my family, Chloe included, and definitely not my parents. All I know is that they've been sending her money. As for my soon-to-be ex-husband, I've heard from a few people that he's now living with his parents. Once the divorce is finalized, he plans to move to another state. Before you ask, I have no idea what he plans to do about his child. At this point, most of our friends know exactly what happened, and the majority have started cutting him out of their lives. A few are trying to stay neutral, avoiding getting involved. As for me, my life is slowly but surely getting back on track. I'll do whatever it takes to protect my peace now. I'm not exactly happy yet, but at least I'm calm, which is a huge improvement from last month. Little by little, I know I'll be happy again. After all, bad things always come to an end eventually. Update 5. This update is pretty recent because some new developments have come up that you might want to know about. My sister lost the baby and has been blaming me for it. According to her, the stress I caused made her miscarry. My parents are also on this crusade with her. The silver lining is that they're not bothering me directly. This is all coming from neutral people who claim they're not taking sides, but somehow manage to accuse me of killing a baby out of pride. It's funny, though, none of these people have actually taken my sister into their homes. So, by their logic, they're just as guilty as I am. If my sister really cared about her pregnancy, she probably shouldn't have slept with someone else's husband, especially her sister's, or at least used protection. Nothing about this whole situation is normal. But when the accusations come from people this irrational, it's really not worth my time or energy to even engage. Update 6. My ex-husband contacted me a few hours ago, and you won't believe what he had to say. No, he didn't ask me to take him back. We haven't ended on horrible terms, relatively speaking, which is why I even responded to his message. He admitted he was wrong and, to his credit, has made the divorce process easy. I don't hold grudges against him, not because he deserves my forgiveness, but because I don't want to waste my time on anger or thoughts about him. No cheater is worth that much headspace. What he told me, however, was very interesting. He confirmed that my sister was never pregnant. He called to let me know because he'd heard about all the things being said about me and wanted me to know the truth. He also told those same people the truth himself, apparently. He'd been asking her for proof of the pregnancy and even offered to go with her to a doctor's appointment several times. She always avoided it. Eventually, she announced she'd lost the baby. When he asked for evidence, she had none. He talked to my parents, and they didn't have any proof either. There's no record of her being pregnant or losing the baby. One day, she simply decided to tell everyone she'd had a miscarriage, and that was it. So, now all the accusations against me for making her lose the baby mean absolutely nothing. My parents have tried to contact me to reconcile, and they've even stopped supporting Chloe financially now that they know they won't be grandparents after all. But honestly, it's too little, too late. I don't care what they do with Chloe now. What I needed was their support back when I was betrayed, support that any decent parent would give their child in my position. So, yeah, it's a no from me, too. In the end, Chloe lost a sibling, a home, and my help because she chose to sleep with my husband and fake a pregnancy. My parents lost a daughter because they prioritized a lie over the truth. I think the three of them should head to Vegas and try their luck there. Maybe gambling will work out better for them than family.